Hello everyone, long time no see. Do you remember me? Can you even believe it's me? It's Adam Ratliff with Adam So Fun, and you are tuning in to my channel. Yeah. I was just doing another video for something else, and I'm like kind of in that mood. So I haven't been back. I took a few weeks off. Sorry. Took some me time, and I was traveling and working and just crazy schedule. So we're back to our casserole carrier. Probably not poisoned. In the last video, I showed you how to download fonts and do the fonts, or and put those fonts into Pro Stitcher Designer and have it stitch out in one continuous motion. We still have to do the video where we're going to go in and connect the dots, or not connect the dots, but basically have it stitch the O and continue a line so we don't have jumps. We're going to cut the jumps out. But before I can get there, because I have to make that video, I already did the video and recorded creating this baby on the long arm. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to stitch out the casserole carrier. So a few things with this that I learned as I was making mine. So I'm walking so you can run. I did everything on the long arm. Everything to putting the interior, what is this? The lining, putting the lining in. If I were to do it again, I would not put the lining in on the long arm. Can it be done? Obviously, I did it. But it was very hard to line things up that you couldn't see because you're stitching, like the lining is covering everything. Because basically I stitched everything. I stuck the lining on, and you're going to see this, and then I had everything stitch again, and everything has to be lined up just perfect. I think it would have been easier if I just put the lining on my domestic machine, stitched around. I can stitch from the top and see that everything's in line, pin things in place. I have some weird puckers and such, just where things didn't exactly hit where they were supposed to. So if I were doing this again, and when I do it again, I'm not going to put the lining on the long arm. Just me. Also, the thermal or Insulbright was not big enough for me to fill all the spaces because it was the depth of, or the width of it. So at one part, like this side is a little floppy because it only has batting in it. This one doesn't actually have thermal bright because I started the thermal bright up here. And this one, does it have 2 layers? Maybe it's just the 1 layer. I might go in and have it stitch and then like cut that extra off. I don't know. You could definitely do it how I did. No, because we're making a quilt sandwich. Just kidding. I wouldn't do that. At one point I have 2 layers of stuff. I don't think I took the extra batting out because I can feel it here. It gets really thick. And I don't think there's 2 layers. I can feel it right here. If I kind of bend it, there's 2 layers, and that's where the little ripple is. I would definitely not do that again. I would just get the thermal bright, cut it, and if I had to, just lay them next to each other. Maybe even zigzag stitch them on my domestic to hold them together. But other than that, everything's great. I love it. So we're gonna stitch this out. I did pick a design to put here. I picked a design to put here. So we're gonna do all of those steps and stitch that out. We'll stitch out the Probably Not Poison and do everything. I mean, obviously I still need to fold these down and make the loops so I have a handle and everything, but who knows when I'll have time to do that because I'm gonna leave again. All right, so here we are. We are at my Pro Stitcher. Everything's on. I have my USB drive in, so I'm gonna go File, Design, Open. And I wanna open, I'm gonna go down to, these are my C drives, so I'm gonna hit the little caret because I wanna go to my D. Hit the caret. I'm gonna scroll down to Quiltable. And then I'm gonna go to my casserole carrier. So this design, Quiltable's given you a few different ones. So they have, let's see, I'm in my casserole carrier. We're gonna hit the little caret so I can point it down. There we are. So they have some that are already done for you. So I'm making a Halloween one. Oh my gosh, read my finger. So this is the buttered biscuit, and it says butter my biscuit, and it has all of your pieces for you. So if I open it, that's what this one's gonna go. And so very nice. I mean, this would look, actually, I really like this. I really like this pattern. I'm gonna move you a little closer. There we go. All right, so this one's the butter my biscuit. We're gonna close that one because we're not using that. And then we have, I come down, happy is home. Let me see, there's our whole thing. Happiness is homemade. There's, oh, I love that fire design. Oh my, I really like this one too. This is me. Here we go, getting all excited. I've already looked at these and I'm already loving them again. Again, not using that one because we're just gonna use our blank one. So here we are. Because we spent all that time making all of those designs, why would we use one that's already done? So I need to go empty. And I'm gonna open the casserole carrier blank. And it's gonna have all my pieces, just like all of our whole cloths. We can pick and choose where we want this to stitch. So my first thing is I wanna kind of get this laid out so it's gonna stitch in the correct place. You've already seen the casserole carrier. Oops, my backing is stuck on something. But I'm stitching, I have purple omni thread. Oh, let me point you down. So I'm stitching with purple omni thread. You can't see because I have great lighting. Let me see if I can turn it off. There we are. So we have purple omni thread. I'm gonna have to do a side lit before we get the shadows. There we are. There we go. All right, so we have purple omni thread. Oh, that's why we're getting shadows. There we are. One more time. I'm using purple omni thread. This is color, I don't even know the color. It is 3172. Same thing, I'm using a So Fine bobbin. All right, so I'm using purple omni thread. This is 3172, I believe. On top, my bobbin is So Fine. It is color 500. They are very similar to each other, so if the tension gets off a little bit, that's okay. We're not gonna see the back, so I've already loaded the backing, I've already loaded the batting, I've already loaded the top. The backing is just there to stitch on. I could probably do this without the backing and just have one less layer, but I decided I'm gonna leave the backing on. My interior section is gonna be the skull fabric that I think is gonna look really great. So, and I found it on clearance. So what better thing to do than that? So we're going back up to the screen, and that was me turning your things off. I'm gonna back you up a little bit because I need to place, I have a 1.5 yards loaded. I need to place this design, and I can see where the center mark, I'm gonna tap this off. I can see where my center is because my leader is marked. So if I go right here and I vertical channel lock, now I can't move my machine, I'm centered on my, what am I trying to say? I'm centered on my fabric. Sorry, let's see, we'll zoom in. There we go. So I moved my machine all the way back to my, where my laser light was at the center point on my fabric. So I moved my machine all the way back so my laser light was at the center of my fabric, and then I came up here, I hit vertical channel lock, and I just moved it towards me so I can work with it easier, okay? I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. So if I go modify, I'm gonna tap my design to select it, and I go reposition because reposition wants to move the design according to where the crosshairs are, the needle is, and then I come over here and I tap center. Now I have that design centered right where my needle is. That's not where I want it, but at least I know that it's centered on my fabric. So I'm gonna zoom out really quick. So now I'm going to move my machine all the way to the left. Oops, turn off my channel lock. Move my machine all the way to the left of where it's the pattern's gonna stitch. So I have a good 3 inches or so over on the left. I'll do the same thing over on the right. Tilt you the other way. And what I'm doing, and I'll show you the screen. I probably have to show you the screen on the other side. But again, I have about 3 inches over on the right. I'm gonna come back over here so we don't have that reflection, the glare from the screen. because I'm just going to try to keep you steady. But what I'm doing, oh, there's the other screen. Let me get this. I just need a filming studio. So what I did, can you see that in there? Is I took my crosshairs all the way over to the left side of my design to know that's going to be where the left side of my design stitches. I'm going to come back to the center. So I did that on both, and it's just a way to check to make sure that everything, wrong way, everything is working correctly and is going to fit. So now I want to see how tall this design is. So I'm going to tap design, and this is 30 inches high. I'm using with the fabric, so I probably have about 42 inches high. I can see that over on my sidebar. So if I zoom into the sidebar, oops, I can see the width and height right there. So now what I want to do is I want to tell Pro Stitcher where I want this to stitch left and right. Or I mean not left and right, but the height. Because I don't want to start it where it currently is. Because if I move my machine all the way back, this is the edge of my fabric. And if we look at where my design is, ooh, I zoomed in way too much. Gosh, it's been a while since I've recorded anything. But since you see, if I try to stitch this, I'm stitching on leaders. So there's a few things I can do. I'm probably just gonna use my reposition. So something I see a lot of people do is I want to use the reposition function. And if I look at my screen, that reposition is already green. So what that means is I have it selected. So I have the function over in my sidebar. Only when it's green up here. If you ever come up and you're like, I want to use reposition, it's already green, and you tap it and you turn it to not green, I guess tan, you deselect it, it disappears from your sidebar. So if it's green, there's a tab over there. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick where I want it. So my needle, let me show you. My needle is right past the selvage, and that's gonna be the cut lines anyway, so I'm okay if I get the selvage a little bit, but I won't. So I'm just gonna use my nudge, and I'm just gonna nudge it until the design is right under my crosshairs. Because then I know where the top is. And to me, that's the most important part. Knowing where the top is. Uh-oh, nudge kept going. This is a very important part, knowing where the top is and knowing that you have extra stitching space on your fabric from the sides. So how we're gonna stitch this out is basically we're gonna stitch this top block. We'll have to advance. We'll stitch this next strip. We'll have to advance, and then we'll stitch the bottom. So I need to go pick my designs because now I'm where I need to be. I could baseline it. That's not really gonna do anything. I just moved it. But this is where I wanna be. I know that all of that's good. So now I have to go, and I think I'm zooming out. Oh no, there we are. So this is where the fun kind of begins because, let's see, I gotta, you can do that. This is where the fun kind of begins because we have to go in, we have to actually pick the designs we want and put those designs in here. So I'm gonna go File, Design, Open. And I'm gonna go back to my quiltable designs. And I'm gonna click on Casserole Carrier. And these are the 3 designs I'm gonna use. I'm gonna use the one I created, probably not poisoned, for my top and bottom where the handles are. And then I'm gonna use the Spinning Spiders Border to Border by Anne Bright in one of my sides. And I'm gonna use Witch's Boots Edge to Edge from Wasatch Quilting. So I can actually open them all right now. So there's one, I'm just gonna move it out of the way. So that's the one I created. Open, we'll do the spiders. And that one's gonna go into this box, but I'm just gonna move it over here for now. And then we're gonna open my Witch's Boots. Do I have to open all 3 of these at once? No, but since I was opening things, I am. So my first step is I need to get, probably not poisoned, into my box. Now this is where things are gonna get a little bit tricky. You have to be very careful because I can use my finger and I can scroll and move that, but if I happen to touch my design and move that and get to a place where I didn't realize and I couldn't do what I just did, I hit undo, then you're gonna be in a world of hurt. Like that's a bad day because now you're stuck trying to get everything back where it was and fit things in, making sure you're stitching on your top where you want. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tap the design I want. I'll zoom in, I click zoom and zoomed in into the section I want, and I'm gonna use modify reposition, and I'm gonna use my nudge buttons. Nudge buttons are gonna make this so much easier because I can just push things around. So let's see, I'll nudge it over here. I can see the outlines that it's gonna stitch, and I kind of dragged and dropped it in a pretty good spot. I just saw someone on the, on I think the Handy Quilter Facebook group or page the other day complaining that nudge gets stuck sometimes, and I'm like, why complain about it? Just fix it. So now I have this side done. And I had already kind of lined this up in Pro Stitcher Designer when I set it up originally. So it was easy for me to know that this is gonna fit and such. Because I did this layout in Pro Stitcher Designer and just saved it that way. One thing I do wanna do, because I'm gonna use it on this side and I'm gonna use it on the bottom. Oh, I don't even have to duplicate it yet. I was gonna duplicate it, but we don't have to do that because we're gonna end up dragging and dropping things, and then I'll just have to drag and drop it if I start doing that. So I'm just gonna do this for now. I keep zooming out. So this is our first set. We're ready to stitch. So what I'm gonna stitch is I wanna stitch the outline border, the basically this outside echo. I wanna stitch the inside piece, and then I'm gonna come stitch the words, and then we need to advance. One thing I did notice when I was working with this in Pro Stitcher Designer is that our start point's here, and it's gonna go up, stitch, come around, and then come down, and then there's that little jump. I do have my jumps turned to 0, so it's never gonna jump anything, but let me confirm that. I can go to my settings tab, auto jumps, they are 0, and I change my default, so if you go to settings default, you'll see auto jumps are at 0. But I know that my machine tends to not like to stitch from right to left. This isn't that far. This is only a few inches. But if I can keep it from doing that, then I'm gonna keep it from doing that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to modify, I'm gonna swap my start and ends, and I'm gonna hit baseline because you have to baseline that in. Now this is the end point instead of the start point. So now I can go to my Pro Stitcher tab, new start end. I'm gonna use my jumps, or my umps in my case, I have umps, and I'm gonna push this all the way down to the last one because I know that that's what it's gonna stitch, and I can actually go up one to this block because I do wanna stitch this block because these are the only pieces I wanna stitch right now. So I'm gonna have it start here, it's gonna stitch the interior block, it's gonna stop, I'll tie off, it's gonna jump to here and stitch the outside block. And then when that's done, we'll come back and we'll stitch probably not. And then when we stitch poisoned, we're actually gonna do it in a different color. I wanna stitch it green, and I'm gonna stitch it twice because I do want it to look kind of heavy, and because it's poisoned, right? So everything's gonna be purple except for this poisoned is gonna be green. So I'm gonna stitch that out. We'll be right back. All right, so now I'm going to, let me show you this so we don't miss a step. So here we are, and I have to turn the lights on because it's really hard for me to see what I'm doing, like cutting thread and such. So now we don't want to stitch, or what am I doing? I need to turn this up. When you're running Pro Stitcher, regulated, pick your stitch length, cruise 175. So I don't want to stitch all of that stuff anymore. I want to just stitch the probably not poison, so I'm going to select it. Now it's selected. Now I'm telling it, I just want to stitch this. So, oops. So we're going to stitch probably not, change threads, and then we'll stitch poisoned. And it's starting up there. When I practice stitched this, I didn't, it had all the jumps. It was horrible. All right, so I have probably a knot stitched. Let me tie this off. So there's probably knot. And then I am going to go up to my screen, bring you over here. And I don't want to stitch anymore. So I'm gonna come and I'm gonna hit cancel. I have to come turn these back on because I turned them off. Now I just want to stitch poisoned. So I'm going to go to new start end and I'm going to use my umps and I'm going to go down twice until the start and the stop are on that same name. Now I'm going to change my bobbin. I'm still going to run it through the TOA because that's what I do. And then I'm going to change my top thread and stitch this out. We'll see you when it's done. All right, so I'm ready to stitch this out. I just want to tell you something, pro tip. I always tell this to my classes. So I've just changed my thread. My needle is on, I just changed my thread, so my thread is on top of my foot and I have the glide foot. Pro tip, when you change your thread or change your foot, do a needle down, needle up. Don't worry about pulling the thread up, just move your machine and now I have my thread under my foot. Yay! So now I have this, we're gonna stitch poisoned. And I'll show you another trick when it's done. All right, so it's stitched out. So here's a trick, because remember I said I wanted to stitch it twice to add more thread. What I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna bring up my bobbin, I'm not gonna trim. I'm gonna come back to Pro Stitch Your Quilt. I'm gonna turn off my tie-offs. Or I still want my tie-off at the end. I don't want the tie-off at the start, and I'm gonna turn off my pull-up. So I just wanted to stitch, and I wanted to tie off at the end. Because it's where it started, and it only works when the start and stop are in the same place. If I hit run, or when I hit run, it's gonna stitch all of that one more time, and then still do the tie off at the end. My thing is, I have to remember to turn these back on. That's what I always forget. So I'm gonna hit run and stitch it out again. Are you sure you want all that stuff? Make sure your needle's up. All right, so now I'm gonna go and enter my thread. You can even see, I was watching it stitch with the camera, you can even see the difference between the first pass and the second pass. And this is a bright green, this is 2101 Magnifico from Superior Threads. So you can, it's like glowing. I wanted it to be like, almost like, what's the word? I wanted it to look like toxic ooze. I guess that's what I'm looking for. So I'm changing threads back, and then I'll see you in here in a second to advance. All right, so everything's stitched. I changed my thread. Now it's time to advance this. So let me see, we're gonna go to the screen. Oops. So here we are. When I'm advancing this, the only thing I want to advance, I don't need to advance the words. I can move them later. I don't need to advance these side designs. We're going to use skew to put those into our boxes after we stitch. All I need to, oh, I forgot my skull and crossbones. Did I forget to put them in here? Oh man, I forgot to put a design on here. I'm going to have to go get it. I can't believe I did that. I can believe that. So whatever, sorry. I'm talking to myself. So I only want to advance this design. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to come over here and put my needle at a start point, maybe this corner point, just an intersection. It doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. I could stick it in the center. Maybe I'll do the center, but just on the bottom line. And I'm just going to do needle down because it'll be faster. So I'm gonna needle down, I'm gonna hit drag, and make sure it stays green and says drop, and then I'm gonna go advance. There we are. You can see all the stuff shifted out of the screen. You can see that my design is now in back. And on the screen, I guess I should keep you here, I'm gonna hit drop. Needle up. Needle up, very important. I don't want to keep that stitch there. And I'll just put my needle back on that line to make sure I'm good and I'm perfect. This is a casserole carrier. It probably doesn't matter if it's a little off. You'll see that my design is sitting right here in the middle of our screen. That's fine. I can just select that design, make sure it's selected, and just drop it out. So now I need to stitch the left box, the center box, the right box. I'm going to select my design. I am just going to put the start and stop points back where they were because I know how it was stitching out. Oops. I'm going to, let me see if I can, I'm going to pull this close. I'm going to try to keep that from, I realize that it kind of zooms into my hands anytime I do something, so I'm trying to alleviate that a little bit. There we go. So we can see our start points, we can see our stop points. It's going to zoom in on me really quick, but I'm going to zoom onto this design. There we go. We know we don't need the first two pieces, so I'm Pro Stitcher, New Start End, and I'm going to use my umps to move down too. Is that right? Oh, I'm using the wrong one, sorry. So that's the first piece. That would be the second piece. I moved down 3, so this is the third piece. This is gonna stitch over to the left. I don't want it to stitch the bottom 2, so I'm gonna use my stop points. I'm gonna use it up 1. This one took it away from that inner piece. Now it wants to stitch the outer piece. I'm gonna go up 1 more, and then, so this is the right box. So now, what I've basically done, if I go modify, crop, start and end, I'm just doing this to show you something. You don't do this. You'll see that I only have the center pieces, and that's what I want. I'm gonna hit undo because I don't want to do that, or I'm gonna hit no crop. So I don't want to do that. I just want to move those starts and end points to stitch these pieces. So I'm going to stitch these pieces out really quick, and as it stitches out, I'm going to go get my skull and crossbone designs. All right, so now we have our boxes done. So now our next step is to place our designs in our boxes. So I'm not gonna move the camera. I'm gonna go to my area tab, and I'm gonna multi-point corner around this. And actually, I'm not even gonna multi-point, I'm gonna 2-corner around it. When I 2-corner, crap. Oops, there we are. So I'm gonna start in this box. When I 2-corner, I always go top left, bottom right. I don't know, that's just me. And I also always go right inside the corner some. I can do my star on my handlebar. And now I have an area on my screen. Let me show you. So here's my area. I'm gonna zoom out really quick because we need to pick my witch legs. Remember, this is the Witch's Boots E to E from Wasatch Quilting. I'm gonna say modify, skew, skew. I'm gonna use the regular skew in this case because I have 4 corners, they're right angles. This one will always work if you use a 2-corner area. I'll zoom in really quick. And one of the things I like to do, I'm gonna baseline that. I always baseline that for a skew, but I always come down to resize. I hit my lock and I shrink it in just a little bit. And that's just if I was really fast and I happen to put those dots in the wrong spot. That helps me out with that. Then I'm gonna baseline one more time, area clear, and I'm gonna go on to my center box. So, area tab, to corner, taking that to the other side, to corner, so I'm in my area tab and I'm gonna go do my center box. So here we are, to corner, bottom left, to corner. There you have it. I can zoom to my area. And in this case, you can't see me. There we go. In this case, I want to open my skull design. So file, design, open. I went and download and put this on my USB while it was stitching. Oh, I have to put my USB in. Remember, USB is gonna go in the black box behind your tablet unless you have an Infinity, it goes under your power button. And if you have a Pro Stitcher Lite, it goes into your tablet. So there we go. Let me get to my designs again. And this is that skull that we auto-digitized. Here we go. I want to scroll down to Quiltable, Casserole, Skull, Open. There we have it. So my first thing with the skull is I want to rotate this. So I'm going to say modify, rotate, and I'm going to rotate this one side or the other. It doesn't matter. And then I can go to skew and skew that baby in. We'll zoom in and see if I like it. Yeah, I think it looks good. I'm going to baseline it. Same thing. I'm going to resize and just shrink it down a little bit. It gets kind of close to those edges up there. And then baseline it one more time. And there's my skull. I love that. And all from just grabbing some clip art online. So now my last step is to put my spiderweb design in there. So same thing, clear. I'm gonna clear my area. I'm gonna come over. So I'm in my area tab. And go to my box. Move my machine to the top left and hit to corner. Bring my machine to the bottom right and hit to corner. Bring you back up to the screen. And you could do this one at a time and stitch it out. I just personally, I like to do everything I can and then stitch kind of my row at once. There we go. So this time we're going to be putting our spider web. So I'm going to make sure select is selected. Tap my spider webs, modify, skew, skew. So modify tab, skew in the ribbon, skew on the sidebar. I can hit this button right here is zoom to area. I can look at it, say, oh, I like it, baseline it, and then I'm gonna resize it. My lock is on and I'm just gonna shrink it down a bit. Again, if I don't go to the lines, I don't have to. In this case, no, I'm gonna leave it. I'm deciding on the spot because it's gonna stitch, because it's an edge to edge, it's gonna stitch out. I might actually increase this design so it goes to the line. I went over the line a little bit, and this is the line I'm talking about, the gray line behind. You can barely see it on the screen, because I can go to Pro Stitcher, New Start End, and I gotta go to the other side so you don't just see my arm. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move the start point to that line. So watch, I'm gonna use my arrow and just come down a little bit. And I'd rather be on my side or on the good side than the other side. Now when I go to modify, I can go to crop, start and end, and it'll just cut that little piece off. Make sure you baseline after a crop. And I can do the same thing. Let's see what's going on over here. That side looks good. Yeah, because this is the line. So that side will be good. I do want to make sure I'm not going out above the lines up here. And I'm not because, well, let's see, I'll zoom in. I'm close, but I'm not outside the line. How close are we at the bottom? Oh, I might just actually, I'm just gonna reposition and nudge it down a little bit. because I was close to the top. And I'm just getting it to fit in there. Am I outside my area? Yeah. Do I care? No, because I'm still inside my box because I put my area inside my box. So if I zoom to area, there we are, like that. And so now I will clear that area. So I want to stitch these 3 designs. I want to stitch the witch's feet, the skull, and then the spider webs. And this spider webs design is, what is it called? Spider Spinners B2B, and it's by And Bright. So I'm gonna tap off everything. This right here is select multiple. I'll select it. I'll come up to my settings. I will come to, or not my settings, I'm sorry, to my workspace tab, and I want to stitch the witch's boots, and then the skull, and then the spider spinners. I'll turn this off. And because I'm just going to stitch these once and then be done with them, we're going to baseline this. We just froze them all together. I have a merged group, and now I'm going to stitch this out. We'll see you when it's done. All right, so now the center pieces are done. And we just have to do, I just have to advance and stitch that bottom piece. So I'm gonna do that off camera so I can get it done really quick because I'm running out of time. And then we will see you back to put the lining on. Oh, I forgot something, so I figured I would come back. So I've stitched the bottom piece. You can see it in there. We're gonna go up to the screen because we have to do something a little funky with the, let's bring this to us. The probably not poisoned. There we are. So, because we need this to fit in here right. So I'm gonna zoom into just that section. So we're gonna have to modify it. I'm just gonna use rotate. I use rotate more than flip or mirror, but we're gonna rotate this all the way around. Oops. And then now I can use my reposition and my nudges to put it in there correctly where I want it. And then now I can stitch that out and then I'll be done. All right, so the last piece is done. That's, let me turn the lights off. There you are. So the last piece is done. So all of the stitching is done. I have probably not poisoned over here, all of my interior. I'm gonna roll all the way back to the beginning. Do we remember when that even happened? That's not what I need to do. And I'm gonna take my top off of my top bar. I'll just roll everything up together. I did load these with my large sew type magnets. I'll link them below. I will probably trim all this extra off because I don't need it. So when I get to a point where I can kind of lift everything up, I'll move you back a little bit. So this is the bottom. I can go through. This is why everybody needs a pair of batting shears. And I will cut this off. I'm going to leave a little bit, but not a ton. And all of this extra is going to get cut off and trimmed off again. But I do want to leave just a little bit. Ugh, batting shears. Everybody needs them. So now I'm going to continue to roll, and now I'm just rolling everything onto one bar. One of the things I do when I roll back and forth, well, I guess I can stop, but I'll go with my hand. Let me see, can you see that? Okay. Yeah, I'll go with my hand under, and I'll tuck it all in. So it's nice and tight in there, and that you're not creasing or folding it. I also didn't base the top down, so I'm just gonna make sure everything's pulled the right way, in the right direction. There we go. Now I'll tighten it up. So now we have to put the backing on. So our first step is, let me bring the machine over. And I'm gonna open my, I guess it's not the backing, it's the lining. Oops. Oops. All right, so I'm gonna open my lining design. So file design, open. And I wanna do, oh, I could have advanced that. I'll show you how to do all this. I'm gonna open, I need to go to my empty and casserole lining. There we are. And the lining, it basically is gonna stitch back on this outside line. It might cut a little bit off, not worried about it, it's a lining. So I moved that. I should have dragged and dropped as I brought the top to me, but I didn't. So what I can do, can we see? Yes. So if I come back and I select this design, I'm gonna go back to my new start in and fix everything back to where everything was. My starting point of this design was right here. I know where that's where that design started. And I know that if I look at the screen, that's the start point. So I move my machine to that original start point. I can see the start point right there. I'm gonna go modify, reposition, and I'm gonna use start point. And now it's gonna stick it back where it belongs. I can check it. So if I wanna check it, I can move my crosshairs maybe to my inner loop here and zoom in. And we're all lined up. Things look good. I can come over here to this corner, check it. You can't see me. Things look good. They line up. Things might shift a little bit. That's okay. This is just the lining. So you can check a few lines, see how things look. You know, we advanced, we came back, we stitched. So things aren't going to be perfectly on there for the most part, but they will be pretty close. There we are. Where did I have that? Perfect. So, so now there's that design. If I pull up my lining design, unfortunately its start point is over on the left, but it's the left corner of these outside boxes. Can you guys see that? Yeah. So I need to take my machine to that start point because I can use that start point feature. So I'm going to look down here, zoom out. So I'm looking for this corner right here. So I'm going to come down onto that corner. Can even zoom in. And I am going to reposition start point. I'm going to take probably not poisoned out because we don't need it. File close selected. So it's going to stitch, oh, let's see, lining. The top piece, and then the right piece, and then the left piece, and then the bottom piece. And it looks like it stitches the right and a little bit of bottom. So make sure you are aware of that because it does come down. It's going to leave a little bit of an opening for us because we have to be able to turn it out. So that's all lined up. Now I have to get my backing fabric. Forgot where I put it. Or lining fabric. And I'm going to put these right sides together because we're going to turn it out. So I'm going to go the lazy way and just pull it under my bar. Now this is, if this is like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work to put the lining on, you could definitely do this on your domestic machine. Just cut it, take it off, and do it there. Probably a little bit easier. Too bad you can't line as you go. You're looking at the screen. This is what I'm doing. Putting the lining in. I'm not going to be able to pull it super tight because every time I pull, oh, you know what? Don't be lazy. That's what the pole cradles are for. I was like, I can do it without moving them. I could, but look how much easier this is. Thank you, Handy Quilter, for pole cradles. All right, so let's put our pole cradle back on. There we go. So now I'm ready. I can stitch that first lining. Again, my jumps are set to 0. So, oops. My jumps are set to 0. So it's just going to stitch that one and then I can advance. Yeah, you're recording. So let me stitch this out. I'm going to change my stitches per inch to 10. Pro stitch your quilt, turn all my things on. So I did the first one. I'm gonna needle down right here and I'm gonna advance. So I'm gonna hit drag and advance from this position because that's the next start point. All right, I was incorrect because it stitches here. We jump over and stitch the left, and then we jump back over and stitch the right and a little bit of down, and then we stitch the bottom part. So I'm gonna stitch that next section. I checked it because I wasn't sure. So here we go. So this is what I was saying. Careful that you make sure that you can fit this whole pass in your throat because you're starting up here and you're ending a little bit down into that bottom piece. And I'm going to just use the corner where I stopped. You can't see this because of the green thread. I'm going to use this corner as my drag and drop point. So I'm just going to needle down because that's where it's going to start. So I needle down, hit my drag, I'm going to advance. All right, so I've drag and dropped that final section. I'm just going to stitch that last little piece. And it's going to stitch to about here because it wants to leave an opening for the to turn the bag out or to turn the casserole dish out. Whatever, the casserole server. All right, so the stitching part is done. We have everything stitched. I will, what I think I might do, because if I fold this over, we have our flip line, we have our cut line. So I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna cut everything and cut it out, snip my edges and everything. And then I will turn it out. I don't think you need to watch me do that, but we'll see you back whenever all of that is done. All right, everyone. So that is the casserole carrier. What are we looking at next? Our next video, we are going to talk about going back into Pro Stitcher Designer and closing up those, not closing the shapes, but cutting the jumps out, having it stitch in one continuous motion like here. There's a D, I wanted to stitch the interior and exterior, and I don't want to have to do jumps. So we're gonna do a video on that. I'm gonna do a video on how I digitize this. How I went to Google, found a stock image, and then auto-digitize this and use this for my casserole carrier. And who knows what other videos are out there. I'm super excited. A project's gonna happen. I'm going to declutter, I guess. I'm gonna reorganize. Ben said I'm going from, what did he say? I'm going from, I can't remember. Something hoarder to quilting haven. That doesn't make sense though. A hoarding maven. That's what I think it was. I'm going from a hoarding maven to a quilting haven. I don't throw anything away. I was so proud of myself. I threw away some scraps yesterday. So, As always, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you're notified when new videos drop. Thank you all for helping me get to 10,000. We're gonna do a pretty big. I'm gonna give away a sewing machine. I just have to be home to do it. I think I might have to wait until after the new year, but it is what it is. It's something free. You all are great. At the end of the day, it's just quilting. We want to laugh. We want to have a good time. We'll see you in the next video when we start messing around with some of these other pieces. Thanks, everybody. Bye.